I remember the night I found my wife Diane sitting on our living room floor, surrounded by hundreds of wedding invitation samples, fabric swatches, and venue catalogs. Her eyes were bright with excitement as she sketched out plans for my sister's wedding. She had spent 6 months of her life every spare moment turning Christina's dreams into reality. Diane used every connection in her industry, negotiated prices, designed every tiny detail with her own hands. I felt so lucky to have a wife with such a generous heart, thinking this would be the most beautiful gift for the sister I loved. But 3 days before the wedding, my phone buzzed. A text from Christina. Just one short sentence that made my blood run cold. Diane is not welcome anymore. Before I tell you what happened next, I want to know where you are watching this from. Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you are ready to hear how a dream wedding turned into a complete nightmare, and how we made sure my sister learned a lesson she would never forget, hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, you will want to see how this plays out. I am the oldest child in my family. I grew up knowing what it meant to carry responsibility on your shoulders. When my father died in a car accident, I was 12 years old. My mother, Patricia, had to work 2 jobs just to keep food on the table and a roof over our heads. That meant I became something like a second father to Christina, who was only 7 at the time. I walked her to school every morning, helped her with homework every night, taught her how to ride a bike in our driveway until the street lights came on. When she got older, I taught her how to drive, warned her about boys who did not treat her right, and stayed up late talking her through her first heartbreak. Christina was always the baby of the family. Mom spoiled her when she could, buying her things we could not really afford just to see her smile. I never minded. I wanted my little sister to have good things, to feel loved and protected. Looking back now, maybe we spoiled her too much. Maybe we taught her that the world would always bend to make her happy. When I met Diane 5 years ago at a wedding expo in Chicago, I knew immediately she was someone special. She was working at a booth for her event planning company, explaining floral arrangements to a stressed-out bride with such patience and warmth. I watched her for 20 minutes before I got the courage to talk to her. Diane was not just talented at her job. She had this genuine passion for making people's biggest days perfect. She told me once that she loved weddings because they were about celebration, about 2 families coming together, about hope for the future. That was the kind of person she was. Kind to her core. Last February, Christina called me on a Tuesday night, her voice shaking with excitement. Bradley had proposed to her at a resort in Napa Valley, getting down on one knee by a fountain at sunset. The whole family was thrilled. Mom cried happy tears. I congratulated them both and meant it. Bradley seemed like a solid guy. He worked in finance, treated Christina well, and genuinely seemed to adore her. But right after the excitement died down, Christina's voice changed. It got smaller, worried. Fernando, I have no idea how to plan a wedding. I do not know anything about vendors or timelines or budgets. What if I mess this up? Diane had been listening from the kitchen. She walked over, wrapped her arm around my shoulder, and smiled at the phone. Honey, that is exactly what I do for a living. Let me handle this for you. I looked at my wife with so much gratitude in that moment. She was offering to take on a massive project, hundreds of hours of work, completely free of charge. Christina's voice lit up through the speaker. Really, you would do that for me? Diane nodded, even though Christina could not see her. Of course. You are family. And I promise it will be the most beautiful day of your life. The next week, Diane started working. She created this massive binder, almost 2 inches thick, with color-coded tabs for every aspect of the wedding. Timeline, budget breakdown, vendor lists, contract templates. She met with Christina every single week, sometimes twice a week, sitting at our kitchen table with her laptop and notebook, writing down every single thing Christina wanted. Christina wanted an autumn wedding at a vineyard. She wanted burgundy and gold as her colors. She wanted 300 guests. She wanted a live band. She wanted a 5-course dinner menu with options for vegetarians and people with food allergies. Diane took notes on everything. Then, she got to work. She spent hours on the phone with vendors comparing prices, reading reviews, checking availability. She used her professional network to negotiate discounts that regular people could never get. She managed to get a 30% discount at this gorgeous vineyard in Sonoma County, a place that normally charged $20,000 just for the venue rental. She found a florist who had done arrangements for celebrity weddings and convinced her to do Christina's flowers for half her normal rate. She booked a photographer who had shot for magazines, someone with a 2-year waiting list, because he owed Diane a favor from a previous event. I watched my wife work late into the night every night. She would come home from her regular job exhausted from coordinating other people's events all day, and then sit at our dining table until 2 or 3 in the morning working on Christina's wedding. I felt guilty watching her push herself so hard. "Babe, this is too much," I told her one night when I found her asleep at the table, her head resting on a pile of fabric samples. "You need to rest." She lifted her head and gave me this tired but determined smile. "I want this to be perfect for Christina. She deserves it." That was Diane, always thinking about other people first. At first, Christina seemed incredibly grateful. She hugged Diane every time they met. She sent thank you texts filled with heart emojis. She told everyone at family dinners how lucky she was to have Diane planning her wedding. But slowly over the months, something started to change. The thank yous became less frequent. The requests became more demanding. Christina would ask Diane to find a cheaper option for something, and then 2 days later she would change her mind and want something more expensive instead. Every time Christina changed her mind, Diane had to start over. Call the vendors again, renegotiate, redo the paperwork. The flower colors changed 3 times. The invitation design changed 4 times. The menu changed so many times, I lost count. Each change meant hours of extra work for Diane, but she never complained. She just did it. I started noticing that Christina was becoming difficult to please. Nothing was quite right. The cake samples were too sweet, or not sweet enough. The music options were too modern or too old-fashioned. The table linens were the wrong shade of burgundy. Diane would patiently address each concern, offering solutions, showing Christina alternatives, always staying calm and professional. But then one night, we were all having dinner at Mom's house. The whole family was there. Christina was on her phone talking to one of her friends, and I heard her say something that made me freeze with my fork halfway to my mouth. "Yeah, my sister-in-law is helping with some planning stuff. It is nice to have free labor, you know." Free labor. Like Diane was some unpaid intern instead of a highly skilled professional, donating months of her expertise out of love. I looked across the table at Diane. I saw her face fall for just a second before she covered it with a smile and went back to eating her food. My chest felt tight with anger, but I told myself maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe Christina did not mean it the way it sounded. 2 months before the wedding, things got worse. Christina called Diane at 11 o'clock at night, crying hysterically because she had changed her mind about the wedding cake. The design they had chosen, the one Christina had approved 3 different times, suddenly was not good enough. Diane stayed up until 3 in the morning researching new bakers, sending emails trying to find someone who could accommodate the change this late in the process. A week later, Christina decided the seamstress Diane had recommended was not skilled enough. Never mind that this seamstress had altered dresses for governors' daughters and millionaires' wives. Diane spent an entire Saturday, her only day off, driving Christina to 3 different boutiques across the city, sitting patiently while Christina tried on her dress again and again, searching for someone who met her impossible standards. I finally had enough. "Chris, you need to appreciate what Diane is doing for you." I told my sister one afternoon when she was complaining about something else, some tiny detail that nobody at the wedding would even notice. Christina looked at me like I had slapped her. Her voice went cold. I am just trying to make my wedding perfect. Is that too much to ask? No, but you need to respect the person who is making it possible. Mom jumped in before Christina could respond. Fernando, do not make your sister more stressed than she already is. She is just a nervous bride. This is normal. I wanted to argue, but Diane put her hand on my arm. It is okay, she said quietly. Wedding planning is stressful, I understand. But I saw the shadows under her eyes getting darker. I saw how she barely ate dinner anymore because she was too busy working on wedding details. I saw my strong, confident wife getting smaller and more tired every single day. 3 weeks before the wedding, Christina organized a meeting to discuss the rehearsal dinner. Diane had already booked a beautiful Italian restaurant downtown. The menu had been approved. The deposit had been paid. Everything was settled. But at the meeting, which was held at Christina and Bradley's apartment, Christina made an announcement. I changed my mind. I want a different venue for the rehearsal dinner. Diane's face showed confusion. But Christina, the deposit at the restaurant is non-refundable. We will lose $1,200. Christina shrugged like $1,200 was nothing. Then cancel it. Find somewhere else. I could not stay quiet. Chris, that is not fair. Diane already put in so much work getting that restaurant booked. They are completely full that weekend. They only took our reservation because Diane has a relationship with the owner. Bradley, who had been quiet up until then, finally spoke. Baby, maybe we should just keep the original plan. The restaurant looks really nice. Christina turned to her fiancé with a look that could freeze water. This is my wedding. I want it my way. The room went silent. Mom looked at her plate. Bradley looked at the wall. Diane just sat there, her hands folded in her lap, trying not to show how hurt she was. Okay. Diane finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. I will see what I can do. After the meeting, when we got in the car to drive home, I was so angry I could barely see straight. I called Christina the next morning. What is wrong with you? I did not even say hello first. Diane is doing all of this for free, sacrificing her time, her energy, her connections, and you treat her like she is your servant. Christina started crying immediately. You always take her side. You do not even care about my happiness. This is supposed to be the most important day of my life, and my own brother is against me. I am not against you. I am against you being cruel to my wife. Mom called me an hour later. Fernando, you made your sister cry. Why are you being so hard on her? Diane agreed to help with the wedding. If she agreed, then she should do it well and not complain. I could not believe what I was hearing. Mom, Christina is treating Diane terribly. Christina is stressed. You need to be more understanding. I hung up feeling like I was going insane. Was I the only person who saw how wrong this was? 1 week before the wedding, Diane was working almost around the clock. She had to confirm final details with the caterer, the florist, the photographer, the band, the venue coordinator. She personally made welcome bags for all 300 guests. Each bag had personalized items, little gifts, that matched the wedding theme handwritten notes. She spent 16 hours assembling them in our garage. I watched my wife push herself to exhaustion, and I felt helpless. You do not have to do this, I told her. You can tell Christina it is too much. I am almost done, she said, taping another bag closed. Just a few more days, and it will all be over. 3 days before the wedding, Diane and I went grocery shopping. We were in the produce section, and Diane was laughing at something I said, and for the first time in months, she looked relaxed. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and looked at the screen. A text from Christina. Diane is not welcome anymore. I stopped walking. The words on the screen did not make sense. I read them again. And again. What? I said out loud. Diane looked at me. What is wrong? I could not answer. I just stared at my phone. I called Christina immediately. It went straight to voicemail. I sent a text. What do you mean? What happened? 3 minutes later, she responded. Bradley and I talked. We do not want drama at our wedding. Diane has been too controlling. This is our day, not hers. She is not invited. My hands started shaking. I called my mother. Mom, did you know about this? She hesitated. Well, Christina mentioned to me that she feels a little bit overwhelmed by how involved Diane has been. Overwhelmed Diane did everything for her. She gave up 6 months of her life. I know, sweetie, but this is Christina's wedding. If she does not want Diane there, we have to respect that. This is insane. Maybe Diane should not have been so intense about it. Maybe she made Christina feel like it was not really her wedding anymore. I could not listen to anymore. I hung up. When I looked at Diane, she was standing there holding a bag of apples, looking at me with these big, worried eyes. What happened? I did not know how to say it. I just handed her my phone and let her read the messages herself. I watched her face as she read. I watched the color drain from her cheeks. I watched her eyes fill with tears. She did not make a sound. She just stood there in the middle of the grocery store holding a bag of apples, crying silently. I do not understand, she finally whispered. What did I do wrong? You did nothing wrong. I took the apples from her hand and put them in the cart. Then I wrapped my arms around her right there in the store, not caring who was watching. My sister is being ungrateful and cruel. You did nothing wrong. I gave up my weekends. I gave up my sleep. I gave up time with you. I just wanted to make her happy. I know. I thought she appreciated it. I thought we were family. That was when I felt something crack inside my chest. This was the first time I had ever seen my strong, capable wife completely break down. Diane was the person who held everyone else together. She was the one who stayed calm during emergencies, who solved problems, who made things work. And now she was falling apart in the produce section of a grocery store because my sister had thrown her kindness back in her face. She does not deserve you, I said. My voice sounded different, harder. She does not deserve anything you did for her. That night I could not sleep. I lay in bed next to Diane, listening to her breathe. She had cried herself to sleep. Her eyes were swollen. She looked so small and fragile, nothing like the confident woman I married. I kept thinking about everything she had sacrificed. The late nights, the weekends, the stress, the money she spent on gas driving all over the city to meet with vendors, the favors she called in from professional contacts. The piece of her reputation she put on the line every time she recommended someone. And Christina just threw it all away with one text message. Around 3 a.m, an idea came to me. It was simple, really. If Christina did not want Diane at the wedding, then Christina did not get to keep all the things Diane made possible. You do not get to kick someone out and still benefit from their work. That is not how the world works. I got up, went to the kitchen, and made coffee. Then I pulled out the massive binder Diane had created, the one with every vendor contact, every contract, every detail of the wedding. I started making a list. At 8 o'clock in the morning, I called Christina. If Diane is not welcome at your wedding, then everything she planned is leaving with her. There was silence on the other end. Then Christina laughed. It was not a nice laugh. What are you talking about? The venue she negotiated? The florist she found? The photographer she booked? The caterer? The band? The decorations she designed? All of it. If you do not want her there, you do not get to use her work. You cannot do that. Those are my vendors. No, I said. My voice was calm, steady. I had never been more sure of anything in my life. They are Diane's connections. She called in personal favors. She negotiated special rates. She built relationships with these people over years of working in this industry. And I am calling every single one of them today to let them know that Diane is no longer involved with your wedding. Fernando, you would not dare. Try me. I hung up. I did not waste time. I opened the binder and found the vendor list. My first call was to the venue coordinator at the Sonoma Vineyard. Hi, this is Fernando Martinez. I am calling about the wedding for Cristina Lopez and Bradley Chen. I paused. Wait, that was wrong. Let me correct that. I am calling about the wedding for Cristina Lopez and Bradley Morrison. Due to unforeseen circumstances, we need to cancel all special arrangements that were made through my wife, Diane Martinez. The coordinator sounded confused. I am sorry, but the wedding is in 2 days. What kind of cancellation are we talking about? My wife is an event planner. She used her professional relationship with your venue to secure a special package and discount for this wedding. The client has decided they no longer want services arranged through my wife. They will need to make their own arrangements going forward. Sir, I do not understand. We cannot set up a completely different wedding in 2 days. I am not asking you to. I am asking you to remove all the upgrades and special touches that Diane negotiated. Return the package to your standard offering. There was a long silence. So you want us to remove the upgraded floral arch, the premium lighting package, the customized signage, and the extended venue hours? Yes. And you understand the deposit is non-refundable. Keep the deposit, that is fine, but remove everything Diane added. All right, if that is what you want. My second call was to the florist. This was a woman named Teresa, who had known Diane for 5 years. They had worked together on dozens of events. Fernando, is everything okay? Is Diane all right? Diane is fine, but I need to tell you something. Cristina has decided to ban Diane from attending the wedding. What, after everything Diane did? Yes. So I am calling to let you know that Diane is no longer associated with this wedding. I understand if you still want to provide your services, but I wanted you to know the situation. Teresa did not hesitate. If Cristina treated Diane that way, then I do not want to work with her. Tell Diane I am so sorry this happened. The flower arrangement is canceled. Thank you for understanding. My third call was to the photographer. His name was Marcus, and he had worked with Diane on at least 10 weddings over the years. Marcus, this is Fernando Martinez, Diane's husband. Is this about Cristina's wedding? Because I just got a very strange call from the bride asking about some details that Diane already confirmed weeks ago. That is exactly what I am calling about. Diane has been banned from attending the wedding. You are joking. I wish I was. Diane spent 6 months planning every detail, and 3 days before the event, Cristina decided Diane is not welcome. Marcus let out a long breath. That is beyond disrespectful. Diane put her professional reputation on the line to get me this booking. She promised me the client was great to work with. If this is how Cristina treats people who help her, then I am out. Consider me canceled. I understand. Thank you. My fourth call was to the caterer. This was a company Diane had worked with many times before. She had negotiated a 25% discount on their standard rate. Hi, this is Fernando Martinez calling about the Lopez Morrison wedding. Yes, we are all set for Saturday. Is there a problem? I need to inform you that Diane Martinez is no longer involved with this event. She was providing coordination services as a favor to the family, but that arrangement has ended. Oh, well, that does not really affect us. We can still provide the catering. I understand, but I need to clarify something. The rate you agreed to was based on Diane's professional relationship with your company. Without her involvement, does that rate still apply? There was a pause while the person checked something. Actually, no. The discounted rate was part of our professional courtesy to vendors we work with regularly. For a standard client, the rate would be our normal pricing. Which is how much more? The difference would be approximately $8,000. And if they want to keep your services at the standard rate, when would they need to pay that difference? We would need payment by tomorrow afternoon at the latest. Thank you for clarifying. My fifth call was to the band. They were a popular group that normally booked a year in advance. Yeah, about that wedding, the band leader said when I explained the situation. We only took that gig because Diane asked us personally. Our calendar was completely full that weekend. We turned down 2 other weddings to fit hers in as a favor. If Diane is not part of this anymore, then honestly, we would rather take one of those other bookings. They pay better anyway. So you are canceling? Yeah, man, sorry, but business is business. No hard feelings. But Diane was the only reason we said yes in the first place. By noon, I had made 8 phone calls. The florist was gone. The photographer was gone. The band was gone. The caterer wanted $8,000 more. The venue had removed all the special upgrades. The cake decorator, who was also a friend of Diane's, called me back to say she was canceling too. I sat at the kitchen table looking at the list of calls I had made. I felt calm, clear-headed. This was the right thing to do. Around 2 in the afternoon, my phone started ringing. Christina. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. I answered. What did you do? She was screaming so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. I told you what I was going to do. The florist canceled the photographer, canceled the band, canceled the caterer wants $8,000 more. This is my wedding. And you banned my wife from it. Actions have consequences, Chris. I hate you. You are ruining my life. No, you ruined this yourself when you treated Diane like she was worthless. She hung up on me. 10 minutes later, Mom called. Fernando, what have you done? Your sister is hysterical? I explained everything calmly. What Christina did. What I did in response. By the end, Mom was quiet. You cannot do this to your sister. I already did. But the wedding is in 2 days. Then maybe Christina should not have kicked out the only person who made it possible. You have to fix this. No, Mom, I am done. Christina made her choice. Now she gets to live with it. That evening, Bradley called me. He sounded exhausted. Fernando, I do not really know what is going on between you and Christina, but she has been crying for hours. Is there any way we can fix this? Did she tell you what she did to Diane? She said Diane was being too controlling about the wedding planning. I told him the whole story. The 6 months of work, the sleepless nights, the professional favors, the personal connections, the text message. Bradley was quiet for a long time. I did not know all of that, he finally said. Christina told me she just felt like Diane was taking over, and it did not feel like our wedding anymore. Your fiancé lied to you, Brad, and now she is paying the price for being cruel to someone who loved her. What are we supposed to do? The wedding is in 2 days. You still have the venue. You still have tables and chairs. You will have to figure out the rest on your own. I hear Spotify has pretty good playlists. Diane and I did not go to the wedding. On Saturday, while my sister was getting married, we spent the day at the beach. We walked along the shore, held hands, did not talk much. Diane seemed lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted. She still looked sad, but not as broken as she had been. Do you think I am a bad person? She asked me while we watched the sunset. You are the best person I know. I really did want to give her a beautiful wedding. I know you did. And she threw it back in your face. That says everything about her and nothing about you. Later that week, I heard from a few family members who had attended the wedding. They did not say much directly, but I could read between the lines. The wedding had happened, but it was bare bones. There were some flowers, but they were simple grocery store arrangements, nothing like the elaborate displays Teresa had planned. There was no professional photographer, just Bradley's friend taking pictures with an iPhone. There was no band, just a Spotify playlist playing through the venue's sound system. The food was fine, but nothing special, and it had cost them $8,000 more than they had budgeted. Apparently, Christina had looked unhappy the whole day. Several guests mentioned that the wedding felt like something was missing, but they could not quite put their finger on what. 2 weeks after the wedding, I got a text from Christina. "Can we talk?" We met at a coffee shop halfway between our houses. She looked tired, older somehow. "I am sorry," she said, as soon as we sat down. She was crying before she even got the words out. I was wrong. I was so focused on having this perfect wedding that I forgot to be grateful for the person who was making it happen. I was stressed and overwhelmed, and I took it out on Diane because I knew she would not fight back. I did not say anything. I just listened. "The wedding was beautiful," she continued, "but it was not what I dreamed of. And every time I looked around and saw what was missing, I knew it was my fault. I ruined it myself. You did. I know you are angry with me. I deserve that. But I want to make this right. I want to apologize to Diane. I am not the person you need to convince. If you want forgiveness, you need to talk to her, not me." Christina nodded. She looked down at her coffee cup. Will she even talk to me? I do not know. That is up to her. A week later, Christina sent Diane a handwritten letter. It was 4 pages long. She apologized for everything. She admitted she had been spoiled and entitled. She said she understood if Diane never wanted to speak to her again, but she wanted Diane to know how sorry she was. Diane read the letter at our kitchen table and cried. Not angry tears this time, just sad ones. It took months before Diane and Christina spoke again, even longer before they could be in the same room without tension. I am not sure their relationship will ever be what it was before, and honestly, I am okay with that. Some betrayals leave permanent marks. I learned something important through all of this. Sometimes loving someone means letting them face the consequences of their actions. I could have stayed quiet. I could have convinced Diane to just accept the disrespect and show up to support family. But that would have taught Christina that she could treat people terribly and still get what she wanted. It would have taught Diane that her feelings did not matter as much as keeping the peace. Instead, I chose to protect my wife. I chose to show her that her value, her work, her heart mattered more to me than my sister's perfect wedding day. And I would make the same choice again. Some people told me I went too far. Some family members said I was petty and vindictive. But here is what I know. When someone disrespects the person you love most in this world, sometimes the only way to teach them is to let them see what life looks like without that person's kindness. You cannot appreciate light until you sit in darkness for a while. Christina had to sit in the darkness of her own choices. And maybe she learned something from it. I think about that day in the grocery store sometimes when Diane stood there crying over a bag of apples. I think about how small she looked, how defeated. And then I think about how she looks now, when she laughs at our kitchen table, when she works on new events with excitement instead of exhaustion, when she knows without question that I will always choose her first. That is worth more than any wedding could ever be. So would I do it again? Would I cancel all those vendors? Would I let my sister's dream wedding fall apart? Would I risk family relationships and face criticism from people who think I should have just let it go? Yes, every single time. Because protecting the people we love is not about keeping the peace. It is about standing up and saying clearly, this person matters. Their heart matters. Their dignity matters. And nobody, not even family, gets to take that away. What do you think? Did I go too far? Or would you have done the same thing to protect someone you love? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story reminded you to appreciate the people in your life who give without expecting anything in return, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want to hear more real stories about family loyalty and standing up for what is right. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it makes you think twice about how you treat the people who show you kindness. Take care of each other out there.